In the vast emptiness of space, 67 crystalline ships drifted silently near the Kepler 442 system. Their elegant hulls caught starlight like frozen tears, a fitting metaphor for the 2 million Zelani refugees they carried. Commander Thasara stood on the command deck of her flagship, staring out at the endless darkness. 3 days had passed since their quantum drives failed, allegedly sabotaged by the Korak Empire, the same empire that had annihilated their homeworld. Life support systems were failing across the fleet. Without help, they had perhaps 2 weeks before the fleet became a massive tomb. "Commander," her aide approached with hesitation. 12,000 more children have fallen ill. The medical bays are overwhelmed." Thasara closed her eyes, the weight of 2 million lives pressing down on her shoulders. Her people were scientists and artists, not warriors. They had never learned to fight. Now they were paying the price. "Maintain the rationing protocols," she ordered, her voice steady despite her despair. "Divert remaining power to the nursery compartments." In another sector of space, the UHS Discovery completed its routine survey of a nearby star system. Captain Jake Morrison reviewed the sensor data with his typical methodical precision. The Discovery was a modular exploration vessel designed for deep space scientific missions. With faster-than-light capabilities and a crew of 200 specialists, the ship represented humanity's growing reach into the stars. "Captain," Lieutenant Amy Walsh's voice cut through his concentration. "I'm detecting unusual quantum signatures at the edge of the Kepler 442 system." Morrison looked up from his reports. "Natural phenomenon." "Negative, sir. The signatures appear artificial. Massive power outputs, but strangely inert." Walsh's fingers danced across her console. "Sir, I'm reading 60 to 70 vessels, all producing huge artificial quantum signatures. But they're not moving." Morrison stood. "Lieutenant Commander Clark, can you establish communications?" Ryan Clark, the ship's communications officer, frowned at his readouts. "I'm receiving transmissions, sir, but they're unlike anything in our databases. Almost like wind chime whale song." He looked up. "Sir, I think we're dealing with first contact." The bridge fell silent. First contact protocols were clear: approach with caution, establish peaceful intent, and alert Earth Command. But as additional sensor data filtered in, the situation became far more complex. "Captain," Walsh's voice had dropped to a horrified whisper, "those ships are dying. Life support systems failing across multiple vessels. I'm reading millions of life signs aboard." Morrison convened his senior officers immediately. Chief Engineer Lisa Parker, Dr. Ben Torres, and his tactical team listened grimly as Walsh outlined the situation. 2 million civilians, Morrison summarized, stranded in failing ships with no means of propulsion. Life support projected to collapse within 2 weeks. He stood straight, decision already made. "We're moving to assist." "Sir," his tactical officer cautioned, "regulations state we should maintain distance until reinforcements arrive. We're days from the nearest human settlement." Morrison's gaze hardened. "Those regulations weren't written for 2 million people suffocating in space. Lieutenant Commander Clark, open a channel. Let's introduce ourselves." Aboard the Zelani flagship, an alert sounded. Thasara rushed to the communications array where her officers had gathered. "Unknown vessel approaching," her communications officer reported, voice tight with fear. "Single ship, unfamiliar configuration." After months of running from the Korak, the appearance of an unknown vessel sent ripples of terror through the command deck. Had they been found again? Would there be no escape? Then the message came, translated through their systems into something approximating Zelani language patterns. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel UHS Discovery. We have detected your fleet and signs of distress. We wish to help." Thasara stared at the message in disbelief. After endless persecution, The concept of help from strangers seemed impossible. Yet the alternative was certain death. "Respond," she ordered. "Ask if they are friend or foe. Tell them. Tell them our children are dying." Morrison received the Zolani response with a mix of relief and concern. "They're asking if we're friends or enemies," Clark reported. "They mention sick children, thousands of them." "Tell them we're friends," Morrison replied without hesitation. "Inform them we're sending an assessment team. Chief Parker, prepare a shuttle with engineering personnel. Dr. Torres, assemble your medical team." As Morrison radioed Earth Command with an emergency appeal for humanitarian assistance, he knew it would be hours or even days before substantial help could arrive. In the meantime, the Discovery was all that stood between the Zolani and extinction. The first human shuttle approached the nearest Zolani vessel, a massive crystalline structure that dwarfed their tiny craft. Chief Engineer Lisa Parker led the boarding team, equipped with portable diagnostic tools and emergency repair kits. "My God!" she whispered as they entered through an airlock. The interior was beautiful beyond description. Organic curves melded with technological precision, all constructed from materials that seemed to capture and redistribute light. But this beauty was marred by the obvious signs of systems failure: flickering illumination, the stale taste of recycled air, and most disturbing of all, the gaunt faces of the Zolani themselves. The aliens were tall, slender beings with skin that seemed to contain crystalline elements, giving them a subtle luminescence. Their movements were graceful, but clearly weakened by malnutrition and stress. Parker set aside her wonder and focused on the task at hand. "Show me your life support systems," she requested through a rudimentary translation device. The Zolani engineers led her team to massive machinery that bore no resemblance to human designs. Parker studied the failing equipment, her mind racing to adapt human engineering principles to alien technology. "This is beyond anything I've trained for," she admitted to her team. "But the basic principles must be similar. They need air, heat, and water circulation." She pointed to what appeared to be a massive pump mechanism. "Let's start there." While Parker's team tackled life support, Dr. Torres faced his own challenges in the Zolani medical bay. Thousands of children with bioluminescent skin lay on beds, their natural glow dimmed by illness. Torres scanned one child with his medical tricorder, struggling to interpret the readings. "Their physiology is different, but there are commonalities," he told his team. "They're suffering from something similar to extreme dehydration and nutrient deficiency. Their food synthesizers must have failed." A Zolani medical officer approached, holding what appeared to be biochemical schematics. Though they couldn't share a common language yet, the universal language of medicine bridged the gap. Torres studied the diagrams, comparing them to his own pharmaceutical supplies. "We can synthesize something compatible," he decided. "Not a perfect solution, but it might stabilize them until more help arrives." The situation was repeated across dozens of ships, human engineers working alongside Zolani technicians, improvising repairs with limited supplies, while medical teams treated the most critical cases. It was a desperate race against time, with lives failing with each passing hour. 4 days into the rescue operation, Captain Morrison met with Commander Thessera aboard her flagship. Their communication had improved with each interaction, allowing for more nuanced discussion. "My engineers report 38% of critical systems now stabilized," Morrison informed her. "Relief ships from Earth should arrive within 72 hours. Thessera's luminescent features reflected both gratitude and lingering fear. "Why do you help us? You know nothing of our conflict with the Korak." Morrison considered the question. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because no one deserves to die abandoned in the darkness of space. We are scientists, artists." Thessera's voice carried the weight of her people's suffering. "We never learned to fight. When the Korak came, we could only flee." "Who are these Korak?" Morrison asked. Before Thessera could answer, Lieutenant Commander Clark's urgent voice came through Morrison's communicator. "Captain, we've detected warp signatures entering the Kepler 442 system. 36 warships. Configurations match what the Zilani identified as Korek vessels." Morrison's blood ran cold. The Discovery was an exploration vessel, not a warship. Even with the incoming relief fleet, they would be severely outgunned. "How long until they reach our position?" "Approximately 48 hours, sir." Morrison looked at Thessera, whose crystalline features had hardened with dread. "They've found us," she whispered. "They won't stop until we're all dead." "Not while we're here," Morrison promised, though he had no idea how he would keep that promise. "I need to return to my ship. We have preparations to make." Back aboard the Discovery, Morrison convened an emergency strategy session. "Options?" he asked his senior staff. "Limited, sir," his tactical officer replied grimly. "The Korak fleet outguns us significantly. Even with Admiral Davis's relief force, we're facing a 3-to-1 disadvantage." "Can we evacuate the Zilani?" Lisa Parker shook her head. "Not 2 million people in 48 hours, sir. Not even a fraction of that number." Morrison paced the briefing room. "Then we need to get as many of their ships operational as possible. If we can't evacuate them, we need to protect them." "Sir," Dr. Torres interjected, "I've been working with Zilani physicians. They've provided information about Korak physiology. There might be medical countermeasures we could consider." Morrison nodded, though the thought of biological warfare disturbed him. "Develop the options, but that's a last resort. Our priority is defense. Chief Parker, focus all engineering teams on restoring propulsion to as many Zilani vessels as possible. Even limited maneuverability might save lives." As human and Zilani crews worked frantically to prepare for the coming battle, Admiral Chris Davis's relief fleet began dropping out of hyperspace. 15 vessels ranging from medical transports to escort frigates. It was an impressive force, but still insufficient against 36 Korak warships. Morrison briefed Admiral Davis via secure channel. "The Zilani are refugees fleeing genocide," he explained. "We can't abandon them." The Admiral's expression was grave. "I agree, Captain. But we need to be realistic about our chances. These Korak have superior numbers and firepower." "Then we fight smarter," Morrison insisted. "The Zilani engineers have been teaching our crews about Korak ship designs. They have vulnerabilities we can exploit." In the final hours before the Korak arrival, Morrison proposed an unorthodox battle plan. Human vessels would scatter among the asteroid fields, using hit-and-run tactics to draw Korak fire. Meanwhile, Zilani engineers had helped retrofit their energy condensers into human missiles, creating hybrid weapons capable of overwhelming Korak shields. Most controversially, Morrison suggested using the failing Zilani hulls, still capable of absorbing significant damage, as strategic shields for human medical transports. The Zilani themselves had volunteered for this role. "If we fight conventionally, we lose," Morrison told his assembled officers and Zilani representatives. "But if we fight like humans, adaptable, unpredictable, we have a chance." As the strategy session concluded, Morrison found himself alone with Thessera once more. "If you lead us into battle," she said quietly, "you sacrifice your people for strangers." Morrison met her gaze steadily. "Sometimes strangers become allies. Sometimes allies become friends." The Korak fleet arrived with overwhelming force, massive angular warships bristling with weapon arrays. Their flagship transmitted a message to all vessels in the sector. "This is Warm Master Grathak of the Korak Empire. Humans, withdraw your vessels immediately, or be destroyed along with the Zilani vermin. You have 1 hour to comply." Admiral Davis's response was immediate and broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Chris Davis of Earth Fleet Command. We stand with the Zilani refugees under our protection. We will not withdraw." The battle began with a devastating opening salvo from the Korak fleet. Plasma beams tore through the outer layers of several Zilani ships. Human vessels scattered as planned, using the asteroid field for cover while firing precision strikes at Korak weapon arrays. Captain Julie Martinez led a squadron of fast attack fighters that darted from cover, launching the hybrid missiles developed by Parker's engineering teams. The weapons punched through Korak shields with surprising effectiveness, causing confusion in their formations. Aboard the UHS Defiant, engineer Nancy Gray found herself trapped in a damaged section when a Korak boarding party breached the hull. Rather than surrender, she overloaded the local reactor, sacrificing herself but taking down a dozen Korak soldiers in the process, saving the civilian passengers in adjacent compartments. Zilani vessels, guided by human tactical officers, positioned themselves to absorb fire directed at human medical ships. The sight of alien refugees willingly placing themselves in harm's way to protect human rescuers confused the Korak commanders, whose military doctrine had no framework for such behavior. 3 hours into the battle, Captain Morrison piloted a battered escort vessel directly toward Worm, Master Grathic's flagship. It was a suicidal move, but Morrison had realized something crucial about their enemy. The Korak could not comprehend why humans would die for strangers. His ship rocked with weapons fire as he pushed closer to the Korak command vessel. When he was within direct communication range, Morrison opened a channel. "Worm, Master Grathak," he called. "I have one question for you. When was the last time anyone died for you? For your people's children?" As he spoke, Morrison maneuvered his ship between a Korak destroyer and a human hospital vessel. The Korak weapons locked onto his position, ready to vaporize his ship. "Look around you," Morrison continued. "Humans are dying to protect aliens we met days ago. The Zilani are shielding our vessels with their own bodies. This is strength you cannot defeat. Not with weapons. Not with numbers." The Korak flagship's prime weapon powered up, targeting Morrison's ship. In that moment, Worm Master Grathak hesitated. Through his view screen, he could see Zilani vessels surrounding human medical transports, absorbing devastating hits meant for the humans who had come to their rescue. It was behavior entirely foreign to Korak understanding. Sacrifice without conquest. Protection without dominance. For the first time in his military career, Grathak found himself genuinely confused. "Cease fire," he ordered, his voice carrying across all Korak channels. A stunned silence descended over the battlefield. In the aftermath of the ceasefire, a tense quiet prevailed as human medics rushed to evacuate the critically wounded from damaged vessels. Korak warships maintained defensive formations, but held their fire. Grathak requested a direct communication channel with Admiral Davis and Commander Thesera. "Your behavior defies logic," Grathak stated bluntly. "Why would humans die for Zilani?" Admiral Davis's response was simple. "Because all life deserves protection. Because we recognize in the Zilani the same hopes and fears that drive humanity." Over the following weeks, representatives from all three species conducted diplomatic negotiations aboard a neutral space station. The talks were difficult, with centuries of Korak military doctrine clashing against human ethical principles and Zilani scientific pragmatism. A turning point came when Thesera introduced Grathak to Thremor, a wounded Korak soldier who had been saved by Dr. Megan Foster during the battle. Thremor had awakened in a human medical bay, surrounded by the very enemies he had been taught to despise. "They treated my wounds," Thremor told his commander, "knowing I would have killed them without hesitation. This compassion. It makes me question everything we believed." The negotiations eventually produced a remarkable agreement. The Korak Empire would cease hostilities against the Zilani refugees. In exchange for certain non-military technological innovations, the Korak would permit the Zilani to resettle in designated sectors of human space, with joint security guarantees. Human and Zilani engineers collaborated to refit the surviving refugee ships. Some vessels were cannibalized to construct hybrid transports capable of safe interstellar travel. A space station named New Thera was constructed orbiting a habitable planet where Zilani settlers began building their new home. The personal transformations were as significant as the political ones. Commander Thesara, once consumed by despair, emerged as a powerful envoy for her people. At the ceremonial planting of the first Zilani memory tree on New Thera Station, she spoke of growing new roots in the soil of friendship. Captain Morrison received commendation from Earth's President Carter for his actions, offered a prestigious diplomatic post. He instead requested command of a refitted UHS Discovery with a multi-species crew, believing that exploration was the surest path to lasting peace. Most surprising was the transformation of Warm Master Greythak. The Korak commander returned to his empire with a delegation of human and Zilani representatives, intent on sharing the lessons he had learned about the unexpected strength found in compassion. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler 442, children from all 3 species played together in the central plaza of New Thara Station. Human children taught baseball. Zilani youth demonstrated their traditional color glow rituals, and young Korak observed with cautious interest. Captain Morrison stood at the observation deck of his new vessel, watching the scene below. His first officer, a human Zilani liaison officer named Lieutenant Ashley Bell, joined him. "New orders from command, sir," she reported. "We're to investigate a distress signal from the edge of mapped space. Unknown species. Possibly hostile." Morrison smiled. "Sounds like a job for us." He turned to the bridge. "Take us out, Lieutenant. Let's see if we can make some new friends." As the ship accelerated into the darkness, Morrison reflected on how much had changed in such a short time, from a routine survey mission to an interspecies alliance that had transformed the political landscape of known space. All because his crew had chosen to help strangers in need. Sometimes, he thought, the greatest victories come not from superior firepower, but from the willingness to risk everything for others. It was a lesson the galaxy was just beginning to learn. The starfield stretched before them, filled with unknown civilizations and challenges. But Morrison was confident that together, human, Zilani, and even Korak, they could face whatever came next. After all, they had already achieved the impossible once. Why not again? In the depths of the New Thera Station, Commander Thesara stood before the newly planted memory tree. Its crystalline branches had already begun to glow with the accumulated stories of her people, tales of destruction, exodus, and now, remarkably, renewal. "We were a dying species," she whispered to the sapling. "Now we are becoming something new." The tree's branches shimmered in response, capturing her words as it had captured the collective memory of generations. Future Zilani would touch these branches and learn not only of their lost homeland, but of the humans who had reached across the stars to save them. Thesara turned as Dr. Torres approached, his medical scanner in hand. "The latest test results are promising," he reported. "The hybrid nutrients are fully compatible with Zilani physiology. Your children will thrive here." She inclined her head in the Zilani gesture of deep gratitude. "Because you were willing to help strangers." Torres smiled. "It's what humans do. At our best, anyway." Across the station, Chief Engineer Lisa Parker worked alongside Zilani technicians, integrating their quantum technology with human power systems. What had begun as emergency repairs had evolved into revolutionary innovations. Hybrid systems, more efficient than either civilization had developed independently. "If you align the phase variants like this," a Zilani engineer demonstrated, manipulating crystalline controls, "the energy output increases by 37%. Parker whistled appreciatively. "And if we reconfigure the coolant system using our materials," she sketched a diagram that made the Zilani engineer's eyes widen. "That would solve the destabilization issue we've struggled with for generations." Such collaborations were occurring throughout the station, as humans and Zilani discovered that their different approaches to science and technology complemented each other perfectly. what one civilization considered an insurmountable obstacle. The other often had already solved through entirely different methods. Meanwhile, aboard the Korak flagship returning to their home territory, Warm Master Grathak faced the most difficult challenge of his career, explaining to the Imperial Council why he had negotiated with enemies instead of exterminating them. The humans demonstrated a form of strength we have never encountered, he told the assembled war masters. They were willing to die not for conquest, not for resources, but to protect others they had no obligation toward. The council chambers erupted in dismissive growls. Weakness disguised as nobility, one elder master spat. Grathak activated a holographic display showing footage from the battle. Human vessels deliberately placing themselves between Korak weapons and defenseless Zilani transports. I thought the same, he admitted. Until I witnessed this, if they are so willing to die for strangers, imagine how fiercely they would fight for their own worlds, their own families. The council fell silent, considering the implications. Three more stepped forward, his uniform still bearing the marks of his injuries. I was saved by humans who knew I would have killed them without hesitation, he testified. This is not the behavior of a weak species. This is something new. The debate raged for days, but eventually, pragmatism prevailed. The Korak Empire would observe the treaty, if only to study this strange new concept of strength through sacrifice. Back on New Thera Station, Admiral Davis met with Lieutenant Colonel Steve Brooks to assess the ongoing security situation. The Korak are maintaining their distance, Brooks reported, but they're watching us closely. Davis nodded. As expected, keep our defense systems at ready status, but continue the cultural exchange programs. The more they interact with us, the more they'll understand we're not a threat, unless they make us one. Brooks looked uncertain. Sir, with all due respect, these are the same Korak who exterminated the Zilani homeworld. And humans once dropped nuclear weapons on each other, Davis replied evenly. Civilizations can change, Lieutenant Colonel. Sometimes they just need a reason to. That philosophy guided the development of New Thara over the coming months. While maintaining vigilant defenses, the station became a hub for scientific and cultural exchange. Human scientists eagerly studied Zilani quantum theories, while Zilani artists created installations celebrating the beauty of Earth's diverse ecosystems. Even a small contingent of Korak observers, initially stiff and suspicious, gradually began to participate in station activities. A young Korak technician found himself fascinated by human music, while an older military advisor developed an unexpected appreciation for Zilani crystal weaving. Not everyone embraced this new era of cooperation. On Earth, Senator Carl Stevens led a vocal minority opposing alien settlement in human territory. We know nothing about these species, he argued in public debates. We're inviting potential enemies into our home. Dr. Ellen Price, head of the Cultural Adaptation Committee, countered these arguments with data from New Thera. The Zilani have already shared medical technologies that have revolutionized treatment for degenerative diseases, she pointed out. Their quantum engineering principles are advancing our understanding of physics by decades. This is not charity. This is partnership. Administrator Frank Collins oversaw the practical logistics of establishing Zilani colonies on habitable worlds within human space. The challenge, he explained to his team, is balancing Zilani environmental needs with human settlement patterns. Their crystalline architecture requires specific geological formations that are rare on Earth-like planets. The solution came from an unexpected quarter. A Korak terraforming specialist, part of the observer contingent, offered techniques developed by the Empire for military colonization. With modifications, she suggested hesitantly. These methods could create suitable conditions for Zilani habitats without disrupting human ecosystems. 6 months turned into a year. The first permanent Zilani settlement on a planet's surface celebrated its founding with a ceremony attended by representatives from all three species. Children, always the quickest to adapt, had already formed friendships that transcended biological differences. Captain Morrison's multi-species crew, aboard the refitted Discovery, had successfully mediated 3 potential conflicts among newly contacted civilizations. Their reputation spread. When the Discovery appeared, peaceful resolution followed. But the galaxy remained a dangerous place. On the fringes of known space, other empires and confederations watched the emerging human-Zilani-Korak alliance with varying degrees of concern and interest. Aboard a monitoring station in neutral territory, representatives from 7 different species gathered to discuss the implications. "The humans are naive," a reptilian diplomat declared. "They extend trust too readily." "Perhaps," countered an entity composed of luminous gas. "Or perhaps they understand something fundamental that we have missed." As debates raged across the stars, the Zilani memory tree on New Thara continued to grow, its crystalline branches now interwoven with strands of earthly plants, a living symbol of what was possible when different worlds chose cooperation over conflict. Commander Thesara, now Ambassador Thesara, often brought visiting dignitaries to see the hybrid tree. "Our story could have ended in extinction," she would tell them. "Instead, it became a beginning." Captain Morrison, returning from his latest mission, joined her by the tree one evening. "We received a transmission from the Korak High Command today," he informed her. "They're requesting increased cultural exchanges, particularly for their military academies." Thesara's crystalline features caught the light, reflecting her surprise. "They wish to learn human ethics." "So it seems," Morrison smiled. "The universe is full of surprises." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the tree shimmer with stored memories. Around them, the station hummed with the activities of 3 species, learning to become one community. "When you first found us," Thesara said softly, "we were hours from beginning to shut down life support to the outer ships. We had calculated that by sacrificing 20% of our population, the rest might survive another month." Morrison looked at her in shock. This was the first he'd heard of such desperate measures. "We never had to implement that plan," she continued, "because strangers from a world we'd never seen chose to help us." Her gaze met his. That moment changed everything we believed about the universe. Far away, on the Korak homeworld, similar conversations were taking place. Warm Master Grathak, now elevated to the High Council, addressed the next generation of Korak officers. "For millennia, we believed that strength came from dominance," he told them. "We measured our worth by the worlds we conquered, the species we subjugated. But at Kepler 442, we encountered a different kind of strength, one born not from conquest, but from sacrifice." The young officers listened with a mixture of confusion and curiosity. Such talk would have been heresy only a year earlier. "Our empire stands at a crossroads," Grathak continued. "We can continue as we have, feared but ultimately alone in a hostile galaxy. Or we can explore this new path, where strength comes from unexpected alliances, from the willingness to protect rather than destroy." Back on the Discovery, Captain Morrison received new orders from Earth Command. A previously unknown species had appeared at the boundaries of explored space, their intentions unclear. The Discovery, with its unique multi-species crew, was deemed the ideal vessel for first contact. "Plot a course," Morrison instructed his navigator. "Maximum warp." As the ship accelerated into the unknown, Morrison thought about the strange journey that had brought them all to this point. A routine survey mission, a stranded refugee fleet, a battle that ended not in victory or defeat, but in mutual understanding. "Captain," his Zilani communications officer reported, "I'm detecting unusual transmissions from the unidentified vessels. They appear to be distress signals." Morrison exchanged glances with his first officer. Looks like someone else needs help, he observed. Standard procedure, sir? The first officer asked with a knowing smile. Morrison nodded. Standard procedure. Let's go make some new friends. And so the cycle began again. Strangers becoming allies, allies becoming friends, and the galaxy growing a little less dark, a little less cold, with each act of unexpected compassion. In the observation lounge of New Thera Station, Ambassador Thessera watched as the Discovery vanished into warp. Whatever happened next, the universe had changed irrevocably, because in the vastness of space, an alien fleet had been stranded, and then humanity had arrived to help.